Hey you witches, how you doing today? We are back with another video, and this one came kind of highly requested off of my last vlog. I had said that I was reading, or I had just finished reading, Traditional Witchcraft for Urban Living by Melusine Draco, and that I thought it was hot garbage, and that if anybody wanted, I would do a review on it, and there were quite a few requests. Now, I want to preface this with typically, if I don't think a book is really worth the money, I'm not going to do a book review on it. This one swung so far in the other direction to the point that it's problematic. It has just glaring issues in it that I thought it was worth maybe giving it a review so as to warn other people and maybe those new practitioners, because I'll be honest, I was really excited to read this book. Traditional Witchcraft, yes, that's my jam, thank you. For urban living, I live in a city. This is great. Like, this seems like, wow, this would be right up my alley. And yeah, it wasn't. It was not good. So, but not necessarily for the reasons that one might think. So we're going to get into it, but before we do, for those of you who are new around here, my name is Taya. Welcome to the channel where we talk about all things witchcraft, the good, the bad, the ugly, and especially traditional witchcraft. And for those of you who are returning viewers, maybe coming in from another video, thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. And all of you, please consider subscribing. It is a really great way to help us build the channel. So, Traditional Witchcraft for Urban Living by Melusine Draco. I wanted a book that was going to tell me, hey, here's all the tips and tricks for when you're living in an urban environment. I think I figured out a lot of them on my own, but I sort of wanted to see what she had to say. There were some tips and tricks, but they were so overshadowed by the issues in this book that I really didn't take anything from it. It was very difficult to take the author seriously. So the sort of four things we're going to go through is, first of all, the practice she is depicting is very Wiccan. She specifically states it's not, which sounds pretty Wiccan to me. We're going to talk about her audacity, the attitude of the author, almost, I would say, bordering on elitism. We're going to talk about the scare tactics. I don't do well with scare tactics. Yes, sometimes we need warnings, but like I'm gonna take direct excerpts out of the book and read them to you. Like, it's awful. And just some final ways in which it is problematic. Some of which might just be me being sensitive, but at the end of the day, I just don't agree with what she's saying. Or how she's saying it. So let's start about, it's very Wiccan. So I'm not going to give you specific examples from the book, but throughout the book, she talks about casting protective circles. She hits that one hard and a lot. In traditional witchcraft, the craft that I have studied, the craft that I have read about, most of us don't cast protective circles. We might lay a compass to create a link to the other world, but we don't inherently see this negative spirit entities out there trying to attack us and glom onto us, and we need to cast this protective circle. So again, that's very kind of Wiccan influence concept. She talks about the Wheel of the Year. So I'm going to read to you an excerpt, not yet, but when I get to it, I'll read you an excerpt where she actually references the Wheel of the Year and how it's this Wiccan concept. But yet when she lays out her own Wheel of the Year, she literally lists all of the Wiccan holidays. Let me find it out here for you. This is the one I did not write down the page. Okay. Chapter 5, Observances and Celebrations. So she starts off strong with Twelfth Night, January 6th. Ooh, that's different. I haven't heard that one before. And all the rest are simply the Wheel of the Year renamed to more traditional witchcrafty sounding names. So she starts out with Candlemas on February 2nd. And then in brackets, it literally says Imbolc. Then she goes to the spring or vernal equinox, March 21st. Yeah, that's Ostara. Then she lists Easter, which she actually links Ostara to Easter, which is incorrect. Ostara is the vernal equinox. Easter happens on the first, starting on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the equinox. So Easter and Ostara are not linked. Ostara is the equinox. Easter is separate. So she screwed that one up, but she's got Ostara in there. Rood Mass, brackets, Beltane, April 31st. Midsummer or summer solstice, June 21st. Lammas or Lughnasadh, August 1st. The autumn equinox on September 21st. Hallowmas or Samhain on October 31st. And then finally, winter solstice, December 21st. So the only difference is that she didn't call the equinoxes and the solstices by the name of the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, but those are the dates that she's celebrating. That is the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. There's nothing wrong with that. Lots of traditional witchcrafters still use that Wheel of the Year that originally came out of Wicca. But, like, she set this whole thing at the beginning about how, I'll get to it, where she's, like, deriding pagans and their use of the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. Yet the holidays that she herself suggests are all the holidays from the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, other than Easter and 12th night. So it doesn't really make sense. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't really jive. And then finally, when she talks about all the correspondences and such, she uses all the Western esoteric correspondences. And while that's not, again, wrong from a traditional witchcraft perspective, lots of people might still use them, a lot of traditional crafters tend to customize their correspondences to their location, or they tend to use north is air, south is earth, east is fire, and west is water. Whole another video, we can get into that, but again, right, using those Western esoteric correspondences, basically using the Wiccan Wheel of the Year and talking about casting protective circles is a very Wiccan style of witchcraft. It's not bad, but she made this point to differentiate that this was not. So, again, weird. Then we'll get into the attitude of the author, which is, I think, where I had the biggest issue. So, I'm going to read you an excerpt from page 12. It is an individual's, italicized, natural ability that distinguishes him or her as a witch. In other words, a witch is born, not made. It just isn't possible to learn how to become a witch if we haven't got these abilities, i.e. if we weren't born with these abilities. Excuse me? That is elitist rhetoric at its best. You must be born a witch. You're not born a witch. You're a witch because you do witchcraft. Now, there may be abilities that you were born with that will make it easier for you to do witchcraft, but you do not have to be born a witch. Witches are not made, they are born. No. That is like huge red flag. If you ever see that in a book, walk away. That is just, no. You're not born a witch. You are a witch because you practice witchcraft, which is a choice that you make to pursue that activity. You are not born a witch. All right, page 13. We're going to talk about this paganism thing now. There's a whole bunch, but we're going to start off. She says, pagans believe that information should be available to all, and that everyone has the right to access all esoteric knowledge. Many pagans are highly suspicious of witches, and some will deny that they practice any form of magic at all. Okay. And then she follows it up a paragraph later with another excerpt that says, witches believe that esoteric knowledge should be kept hidden because it is impossible to convey the meaning of the true mysteries, her quotes, true mysteries, without the appropriate teaching. So she's deriding pagans because they think everyone should have access to this information. No, I'm sorry, witches are secretive and we don't just share with anyone. Oh, right, only with those who were born a witch, right? No. Anybody who wants to learn witchcraft can come and learn witchcraft. Now, yes, there is a level of like those deeper mysteries that to access them, you have to advance to a certain level in your craft. You will need to, but to imply somehow that, not everyone should have access to them. No. I think everyone should have access to even the deeper mysteries, which they will have to work for, right? That aren't going to be handed out on a golden platter. But I'm not going to gatekeep that and say, no, you weren't born a witch, you don't get to have access to that. Problematic. All right. Staying on the bit about the teenagers. Paganism caters for teenagers. Paganism caters for teenagers within the community and actively encourages them to attend the fairs, buy the books, and any appropriate accoutrements. So basically, pagans are a bunch of capitalists who are trying to make money off of teenagers. Pagans claim to worship nature in the persona of the goddess. Not pagans worship nature in the persona of goddess. Pagans claim to worship. Her wording there shows you that she doesn't believe that they are actually worshiping nature in the form of the goddess. They just claim to. That's rude, man. All right. And then, after she's like, oh, no, they claim to worship nature in the persona of the goddess after, like, making all this capitalist money off of a bunch of teenagers. Witchcraft, however, is not bound by social rules and conventions, only by the personal morality of the individual, and is governed solely by the natural tides. So what, witchcraft is like so much cooler, so much edgier, because we don't have to follow the rules? I mean, the snark is just dripping off of this commentary. My snark in response to her snark. Like, pagans claim to worship nature in the persona of the goddess. Like, just, oh, she's rude, man. And this is like in the first chapter. All right. Now, this is a book that is about urban traditional witchcraft, right? Traditional witchcraft for urban living. So I am looking for tips and tricks. How do I use what's in the city? How do I work with the environment in which I find myself? And she kind of goes on a little bit about looking into different areas to see if, you can find little nooks and crannies where things are growing and da-da-da, right? And then she just throws this one in your face. Another problem that faces today's urban witch, however, is that unlike her country cousins, it is not advisable to utilize nature's local available bounty due to the high level of municipal pollution. There may be suitable plants in profusion on urban waste ground and open verges, such as common plantain and horsetail, but all will be coated with industrial and vehicle emissions, dust, grime. Not to mention the gallons of dog pee emptied over them in the growing season. Excuse me? So you're telling me, and don't get me wrong, if I'm walking along, there are some main roadways in my city that I would never forage off of for use of either magical or medicinal uses, because yeah, there's cars running constantly back and forth and there's going to be pollution there. But I have access to community pathways and parkways that aren't doused in pollution. I mean, she's making living in an urban setting seem just absolutely horrific. The gallons of dog pee emptied over them in a growing season. Now, here's the other thing. She doesn't just mention this time. She actually brings it up again later in the book about the gallons of dog pee. My friend, you can wash dog pee off. Like, again, things you need to be aware of, but she takes it to this level where it's just disgusting. And it's not necessary. What's with the audacity? Like, what is she trying to accomplish with that? All right. We're then going to talk about the Wannabe Witches. She says, I'm always hearing from wannabe witches that are exhausted from persistent psychic attack, but more often than not, the problem is that their defenses have been breached by negative energy due to insufficient preparation and a degree of arrogance that nothing can harm them. No, it's your arrogance we have a problem with, Ms. Draco. I want hearing from wannabe witch, like what a rude turn of phrase. I'm always hearing from wannabe witches. So I'm reading this book as a new witchlet going, I want to learn some information, and here she's bitching about the wannabe witches? And basically saying that, you know, hey, it's their own damn fault because they're so arrogant. This is not coming from a place of kind, considerate teaching. This is coming from a place of, again, the audacity. Okay, but, so there's the wannabe witches. Then she gets into the real witches. What is a real witch? And when she writes the word real, it is italicized. I'm going to read you this passage. Already we have touched briefly on two qualities that make a real witch: the natural ability to heal and a proficiency of interpreting the omens. I disagree, but that's not what this is about. A real witch also has the true gift of sight, because she's born with it, right? That is adeptness at divining the future and all it holds. The real witch can summon the spirits of his or her ancestors and have the skill to call upon those entities that inhabit the between worlds to do his or her bidding. A real witch can and will curse, but rarely does, simply because of the sustained effort required to carry out a successful curse. Finally, a real witch must be able to find his or her way through the maze encountered during a transformational experiences that all within the craft must face. And should it be necessary, to descend into the other world to accompany the dead on their final journey. Real witches. Do not sit in this book and tell me what a real witch is. There are lots of different ways to practice witchcraft. Now, yes, I would agree that there are some things that, one needs to do to be a witch, right? You need to practice spellcraft, but do you need to be having the true gift of sight? Like if you're not, psychic? You don't have the gift of sight? You're not a real witch? No. You have to practice witchcraft, and witchcraft comes in many different forms. Again, the audacity to go on this, tirade about what real witches are and do. No, not cool. We're not even done. We're going to skip ahead now. Page 45. It is also perhaps becoming clear why Traditional Witchcraft for Urban Living, her book here, doesn't begin with the usual claptrap about acquiring the right magical equipment and how to celebrate the Wheel of the Year. The urban witch has more important things to learn. doesn't begin with the usual claptrap, like you're so much better than all those other authors who chose to start their books talking about tools and the Wheel of the Year. Second of all, you literally have a whole chapter in here about the Wheel of the Year. Again, just the audacity, the elitist, entitled attitude, like, I don't get it. I don't get it. So that was sort of all the parts about her attitude, the just, who does this author think she is, and who does she think she's speaking for? To me, this is not the attitude of a traditional witch. This shouldn't be the attitude of any witch. All right, I want to get into her scare tactics. Because, like, yes, you need to have protections in place. You need to be thoughtful and mindful about what you're going to do. But we're going to start out here with the first reference. For the urban witch who wishes to work on the astral in the privacy of his or her own home, the protective measures must be, bolded and italicized, doubled, to ensure that no negative energy is allowed to penetrate our defenses. Our circle must be impenetrable, and when we close down after a working, it is essential that no part of the ritual be left undone. Over a period of time, a buildup of localized negative energy can, italicized, can develop a life force of its own. And the only way for it to feed in order to metamorphose is to latch on to an unsuspecting novice in much the same way as any earthly parasite. Oh my God, what is this woman talking about? And she hits it again a little later on. There are numerous parasitic entities that inhabit the inner and outer astral realms, which feed off the negative impulses generated by thousands of people in an urban setting, confined within a less than perfect environment. They have been described as strange, parasitic creatures, lost souls seeking to stretch across the abyss and make contact with the warm, constant flow of humanity. Like all parasites, these astral shells prefer to feed off a healthy host than an enfeebled one. And the unwary witchlet who has insufficient magical protection will, italicized, will attract such entities like a beacon. What? My mind is just like blown. Don't get me wrong, yes, you need to have some protections in place. But this whole idea of, like, just negative energy is going to take on a life of its own and feed off of you? What? What is this woman talking about? I think that's absolutely bunk. And it's fear-mongering, and all of those young witches reading this, and this is why they come to you and go, oh my gosh, I think I'm under attack. Those wannabe witches who are constantly thinking they're under attack, I wonder why. Because people write crap like this. And finally, a few things that are just straight up problematic that I'm just like, what is, like, I don't understand what she's talking about. So, back on page 8, she makes the statement that pure or purified water, she's talking about tap water, is sterile, and that for magical purposes we need to work with natural, italicized, natural water. Okay, no, I am sorry. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Everybody in my book club disagreed with that. That's a very like ableist attitude that we all have access to natural water. And I mean, yes, you know what? You could set your bowl out and collect rainwater. Hey, guess what? I live in Edmonton, Alberta. It rarely rains here. I would nowhere collect up near enough water to be doing magical, right? To be doing magical workings. Tap water is fine. If it can sustain life, it can sustain magic. I was just like she's got these weird purist ideas, and it's very not cool. Speaking of which, we will flip ahead. She states, before casting our circle, we must also ensure that we are pure in body and mind. And then goes on to talk about how you can meditate or take a ritual bath to become pure prior to doing the work. This idea that we as humans are inherently impure is Christian bullshit rhetoric. I am nature. I am nature. The things that I build, like houses, cars, buildings, and roads, guess what? They're actually part of nature. Would you tell me an anthill isn't part of nature because it was built by the ants? Okay? Again, this is maybe not a traditional witchcraft thing. This is a personal gnosis thing. This idea of being pure before starting magic, just, again, so problematic. It's misogynist. It is this idea that we are impure. No. No. Can you tell I'm a little riled? All right. Page 62. She's talking about love spells. And she says, bolded in italics, it's black magic. Now, first of all, she goes on and talks about cursing and hexing and how she's totally for it. So why are you making this distinction that it's black magic? This idea of black versus white magic is at its core racist. Okay? Saying that something that is black is bad and something that is white is good stems from racist rhetoric. And I know a lot of us don't recognize that because it's just what we grew up with. But at the end of the day, we need to call it out now when we see it. There is no such thing as black magic or white magic. It's just magic. There is no such thing as good or bad energy. It's just energy. So saying that it's black magic, bolded and italicized, problematic. No. And finally, again, it's just that she equated Ostara with Easter when it's not. Ostara is celebrated on the spring equinox. Second of all, Easter did not steal Ostara from the pagans and make it a Christian tradition. Easter is based on the Jewish Passover. And again, when you turn around and say, I want to be the victim and they stole it from the pagans, again, you're trying to remove the Jewish contribution to that holiday. The fact that it was taken from the Jews. You can't erase their contribution and claim it as your own. Now, were some elements that were over, in much like 1800s incorporated, like bunnies and eggs? Yeah, that's more of like a pagan callback. But when Easter first started, it wasn't about bunnies and Easter eggs. That is a commercialized concept from the late 1800s. Okay? So again, this conflation of Easter and Ostara is just wrong. And she's, again, wiping out that Jewish contribution to the holiday of Easter. Problematic. So, those are my rants. We are at 30 minutes of tearing this book to shreds. I could go on, but I'm going to leave it there. Don't buy it. Don't waste your money. It really doesn't add anything to the conversation. She, barely makes any suggestions about what you can do in an urban context. It's more about what you shouldn't do and how everything is, dirty and pee covered. So I hate to say it, but I've heard her other books are okay. But this one, no. So my friends, have you read it? What did you think? I'd love to know because this is 5-star reviews on Amazon and I don't understand why. I really don't. It's terrible. So, yeah, leave us a comment. Let me know what you think. Otherwise, that is our video for today and we will catch you in the next one. Mwah! Thanks so much, you guys.